Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 29 out of 32, I was joined by New York Jets fan and Jets International Fan of the Year, Olivia Peebles, as we preview the team's upcoming season. Olivia discusses Justin Fields ahead of his first season as the Jets starting quarterback.
I think it probably is the last chance saloon for Justin Fields in terms of establishing himself as a starter.
Olivia also discusses new head coach Aaron Glenn.
But from what I've heard, Aaron Glenn is very different to Robert Saleh.
And Olivia predicts the team's overall end-of-season record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, for Team Season Preview 29 out of 32. And the team of focus today is the New York Jets. Now with me, I've got a returning guest. We've got a resident Jets fan and also Jets International Fan of the Year. Back with her today is Olivia Peebles. Olivia, first of all, how have you been? How are things?
Yeah, very good. We're well underway with training camp, so that's really exciting at the moment. And yeah, the countdown to the new season's on.
It is. I mean, we're now recording it currently 13th of August, so we've had the first lot of preseason games for the whole league. Got a couple left, and then the season starts September 7th. So it's exciting times. Exciting to know it's finally here after what is the longest of long off seasons.
Yeah, it does. It feels the longest and the shortest as well because there's so much going on with free agency, the draft, and then like mini camp and rookie camp. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot, but also it's been a while since we've had proper football. So really looking forward to getting back into the real games rather than these pre-season scrimmages.
Well, let's go into the internet of the off-season. So in free agency and also re-signings, the team brought in Alan Lazard, Justin Fields, Josh Reynolds, as well as Andre Cisco, Josh Meyer, Isaiah Oliver, Tyler Johnson, Tony Adams, and you lost the likes of Greg Joseph, Hassan Reddick, Tyler Conklin, Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, Ashton Davis, and DJ Reed. And total, the Jets took 7 players in the draft. Of course, one of these is very close to your heart. The Jets took in total offensive tackle Armand Membu, 7th overall, as well as Mason Taylor, tight end, 42nd overall, as well as Azarai Thomas, cornerback, 73rd overall. 110th overall was Arian Smith, and the one that you announced live in the draft, as well as Malachi Moore, the safety. This is along with Francisco Magoa, the linebacker, and Tyler Barron, the edge. So for you overall, Olivia, your take on the off-season as a whole?
Yeah, it's been a low-key one, which is what the Jets have needed for some time. Feels like every year that I've came to speak to you, something big has happened, or, obviously Rodgers and then the return of Rodgers last year and getting rid of Zach Wilson, last year as well. So it feels like it's just been seasons upon seasons of upheaval. And don't get me wrong, it has been this year as well with Glenn and Muji, the new GM and head coach, which we'll get onto. But in terms of the actual roster and the draft, it's been low-key, but it's been needed. So obviously the biggest addition, not in financial terms, but was Justin Fields. I think, not to be biased, but I think he probably was the best quarterback option that wasn't to be drafted in a underwhelming quarterback free agency, which totally understandable, given that good quarterbacks don't tend to become free agents. So I'm glad that we got that. I think that was a really good move by our new GM. And the rest, they've been needed, but I don't think they've been star free agents. Brandon Stevens, I think, was the biggest one, which is a little bit of a head scratcher, but we'll see what the plan is there. But yeah, it's also the locker room culture that needed to be changing. So it did mean letting go of quite a few players in free agency. I think DJ Reed was probably our biggest miss, but quite like our cornerback room as it is now. So they've done well to rebuild that. The draft, again, it feels like a really sensible draft, specifically on day 1 and 2. Membu was the sensible choice over Tyler Warren, which, you could have made an argument either way, but it seems he's been really good, it seems, in training camp at the minute. and then Mason Taylor in round 2, which I really, really like that pick. We needed a tight end for so long. I don't think the Jets have ever had a good tight end, never mind a great one, for quite some time. So I do really like that pick. And then we went defense. Obviously, like you said, Thomas, really nice cornerback pick. Malachi Moore, obviously, I know I'm biased, but he seems like he's had a good training camp as well. So yeah, it's a lot of the boring but needed stuff. Not expecting anyone to jump off the screen this year for the Jets that we've acquired this off season, but it feels like we're laying the foundations, and hopefully next year that's when we can add that bit of star power, that bit of quality that will get us to whatever the next phase looks like, whether that's getting the playoffs, actually looking competent, maybe a good goal for the Jets in the near future. So yeah, so I'm quietly pleased. I'd probably rate it maybe a 7 out of 10 because I feel like we've also had so many holes that we haven't addressed. But yeah, I'm happy with it so far, but it can change, of course.
Yeah, I think probably one thing you've learned from your time being a Jets fan is to never really expect anything to be boring. I think it's been an eventful few years, and of course, one of them, part of that came with Aaron Rodgers, who I somehow didn't mention at the start of the episode when I went through the ins and outs. But he, of course, left the team, ended up as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Mentioned it before, but you brought in Justin Fields. How are you feeling about that? Because it's fair to say he hasn't necessarily had the career in the NFL that maybe we all thought we'd have. Certainly, had a poor time with the Jets. I think his time with the Steelers poor time with the Bears. Had a okay-ish year with the Steelers. I don't think he was terrible. I think we talked about it in the Steelers episode with Freddie, or both Freddies, and they were talking about how they felt Fields did a good job but when he was under centre for the Jets, and I think in a way you could argue maybe he did a better job than Wilson. I mean, they were 7-3 before Wilson got brought in. Well, when he was playing, they went from 7-3 to 7 and sorry, no, 10-3. They went from 10-3 to 10-7. So you could argue Fields maybe could have been the starter there. Certainly the rest of this year. The rest of last year. My head's going a bit fuzzy. I think I'm coming towards the end of these season previews. My brain's turning to jelly. But no, Fields has come in, not had a great time as a quarterback, but we shouldn't really base anything off a preseason game in one moment in a preseason game. But I saw a nice touchdown from Fields the other day in a preseason game, and it just takes one right fit to change a quarterback's career around. So how are you feeling about Justin Fields coming in? Do you see him as a short-term fix? Do you see him as a long-term answer? What are your thoughts on Justin Fields?
Yeah, so as I said before, I think it was the right move by the Jets to let go of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Glenn wanted to really establish his culture and his team, I don't see how Aaron Rodgers would have fitted into this, because as everyone knows that this has been the Aaron Rodgers show for the past 2 years. And we needed to move away from that. So whilst maybe on paper you can absolutely make an argument that he is the better quarterback than Fields, we needed to move on. And interestingly, Pittsburgh actually wanted Justin Fields back. It was widely reported from both the Jets side and the Steelers side. So Aaron Rodgers wasn't first choice by any stretch, and obviously Justin Fields has turned them down, which I totally get, because he, like you said, he did okay. Didn't set the world light. But then as soon as Wilson was healthy, he came straight back in and again didn't look brilliant either. So I understand why Justin Fields wanted to move on. It's promising that he picked the Jets. It's not. I think it probably is the last chance saloon for Justin Fields in terms of establishing himself as a starter. So it's a bold move to pick the Jets. I think that's fair to say. I mean, it's been good vibes so far. It seems like Aaron Glenn is a real believer. Feels like our OC, Tanner Engstrand, has something cooking. It's really hard to tell in the training camp period because quarterbacks don't use their legs that much. Obviously, tackling isn't really a factor. So it's hard to get a grasp of what our offensive plan will look like for the year. I think if we're being realistic and judging by how Fields has played and how his career's gone, we probably are looking at drafting a quarterback next year. But there's still a part of, I think, every Jets fan that hopes that maybe this is the year he turns it around and has a Baker Mayfield, to a lesser extent, Sam Darnold style of resurgence. And he is the quarterback for the future, and we get to sign to a really long-term deal, and everything's brilliant. But we've got to be realistic, and it probably isn't going to work out long-term. With that said, I'm excited to see him. I think he's a really fun quarterback to watch. I wanted to draft him over Zach Wilson, and obviously we know how that turned out. Future Dolphins QB1, Zach Wilson, that'll be fun. Obviously joking. So yeah, I think it'll be really fun to watch. I think it'll be really frustrating as well, though. I think just decision making, interceptions can be an issue as well. Just reading the defense as well, but it's always fun to watch a scrambling QB, isn't it? One who can really utilize the legs, and there's very few that can do it better than Justin Fields. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen to an extent as well. So I just want entertainment. I just want it to be fun. I just want it to be competitive. And yeah, like the Jets are relying on him, but he's also relying on the Jets as well. Because if it doesn't go well, I can't imagine him being a starter elsewhere, unless it is clearly the Jets' fault. But yeah, so in short, I think it was the right decision. I wasn't keen on trading up in this draft. I don't think it was the draft to do that. They might prove me wrong. And it's a 2-year contract as well, so there's no real pressure either way. If he's kind of like a middling quarterback. But yeah, just hopefully he's fun and he stays healthy, and it can be a career year for him. But it probably doesn't look like it will be. But he's hoping, eh?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think the Sam Darnold year last year, I think is evidence for any quarterback that you can have struggles in the NFL, but you can turn it around. And there's no guarantee that Sam Darnold will be a success in Seattle, but certainly that year he had in Minnesota, I think, is proved to certainly should be used as motivation for the likes of Justin Fields, that they can still turn their careers around. So I think, whilst I don't think he hasn't got the luxury of having Kevin O'Connell like Sam Darnold did, or Justin Jefferson to throw to. He's still got Garrett Wilson. The O-line, I think, we'll see an improvement from this year for the Jets. So I think and the defense as well has some weapons in there that could easily win the Jets games alone. So I think Fields has the chance. I do believe that if he isn't going to succeed with the Jets, I think that would be a curtain call on his chances of being a regular starter. But I think, unlike Sam Darnold, he hasn't got a young quarterback breathing down his neck. I mean, he only got the chance last year because McCarthy got injured. I think if Fields, I kind of think of the backup is the Jets behind Justin Fields. I kind of think who that is to even put any pressure on him if he doesn't play well.
Tyrod Taylor is a backup.
Tyrod Taylor, okay. So yeah, it's not exactly a quarterback that's going to scream, I'm coming to get your job. So yeah, I think with Fields, he's got all the chances of the world, and of course, it does hang on the balance of how Aaron Glenn does as the head coach. Now, I've got to apologise to those regular listeners. For some reason, I had it in my head that he was a head coach before. I think I've got head coaches mixed up in terms of when I was doing my homework and my research. He's never been a head coach before. It's his first stint as a head coach, of course, most well known for his time with the Lions as the defensive coordinator. Now, we had talking about the Lions episode. We had Aaron Fletcher on in the episode where he talked about how he thought Glenn wasn't a great coordinator, but he had all the characteristics of a good head coach. So it's interesting how he'll do, because he's never had previously Glenn in this role, and we see a lot of coordinators, whether it's good or bad, McVay and Shanahan on the good side, Adam Gase on the, as we both know very well, on the not so good side, and Josh McDaniels is probably the most recent example of a lot of hype around as a head coach and then not doing well. So as a coordinator, not doing well as a head coach. And the same thing as Matt Patricia. And we've seen him early on in the offseason, very early on in his time with the Jets as head coach, putting out some pretty strong rules. So how do you think about Aaron Glenn going into his first year as the Jets head coach?
Yeah, I think when you look at the hires over the past, like in the off season, obviously Ben Johnson was probably the most touted. Chicago landed him, and then if you look at the other hires, you've got Liam Cohen, Schottenheimer, which is wild. I don't know what's going on with the Cowboys, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Kellen Moore. There was no real standouty ones. Like even overseas, like Cliff Kingsbury opted to stay with Washington, which is a sensible choice. So it felt like on paper it wasn't an outstanding class of potential head coaches. But once Aaron Glenn kind of interviewed, and obviously I don't know if many people know the backstory, but Aaron Glenn was drafted by the Jets, was a very, very good player with the Jets, and then went on to Houston. So that story is quite nice from like a personal, I suppose, emotional side of his homecoming, and he's repeatedly said how he's emotional at the homecoming, and like the fact that he's like a Jets head coach is so amazing to him. So it's nice to see that passion. In terms of the practical side of things, I'd probably rate him a bit higher as a DC than as what was said in the Lions preview. But I do appreciate that from a better perspective than myself. But with that in mind, being a head coach is completely different than a coordinator's job. Look at Robert Saleh, for example. I have no doubt he's going to lead San Fran to one of the best defenses in the NFL. He's an amazing defensive coordinator. He was not an amazing head coach. And that's not to say he's not talented or like, he can't lead a defense. He just lacked that, whatever it is, just lacked that leadership, that organization, that accountability, that hopefully Aaron Glenn's the opposite. Granted, Detroit's defense wasn't great, but if you see the amount of injuries last year, not excusing it, obviously crashing out the playoffs the way they did, is that a cause concern? A little bit. But I do really like the hire of Steve Wilks. I think that's a fantastic hire for the DC side of things. He will be running the defense. Aaron Glenn himself has said he's not going to call plays. That's going to be on Steve Wilks, which I really like that decision. His offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrand, from, I believe he was passing game coordinator in Detroit. Not a left field one because of obviously that Detroit connection. But he's young. He's never called plays at the only professional level, I believe, is in the XFL or UFL, whatever it was, before the merger, and then in college. So a little bit of an experience, maybe more so of a worry than the defensive side of things. But from what I've heard, Aaron Glenn is very different to Robert Saleh. It seems like he's not taking no nonsense, which I get. Again, you can talk a good game. It doesn't matter if you don't get wins. So I am happy with the hire, first of all. I think it was the best out of the rest once Ben Johnson had no intentions but going to Chicago. And I think if there's anyone to change the culture, I think it's him. And if he doesn't, then I don't know where we go from here. So yeah, I'm happy. It seems good vibes at the minute, good energy, but I do appreciate we haven't yet got into the autumn where games and kicking in, and it's all good vibes at the moment. So yeah, again, cautiously optimistic, not too optimistic, because ultimately it's the Jets. So
yeah, I think that you think about kind of the luck on their side or not on their side in this case. All the hype around Aaron Rodgers, if you can't work with him and then work with Aaron Glenn, I think it's going to take a long time for Jets to get back to anything good. I mean, you've tried so much over the years. I mean, you've got the longest playoff appearance drought in the league, and as a result, one of the longest playoff win droughts. And you've tried a full-time MVP. You've tried bringing Brett Favre into the building. You've tried multiple things. You've tried different head coaches, different quarterbacks, high picks, and none of this worked out. And it just seems that ever since Rex Ryan left the building, and even the time before he was there, it just seems to have been just all round years and years of just mediocrity. And I know you probably are sick of hearing this. To be fair, it's probably not something you like to hear. I just don't know where to go from there. I mean, he could be the guy that turns around. I have my reservations because he's never coached an NFL game, as a head coach. But certainly, you got to think with how he's able to lead that defense, how much it improved since he was there. And obviously, injuries were a big thing for him. I think if everyone was healthy, if you had Hutchinson there, if there was not as many injuries, the Lions may have easily, won that game against Commanders, and they may have gone out and won a Super Bowl. So I think he has been a bit unlucky in that sense that the injuries were too much to come back from.
Yeah, I think your concerns around him, like the lack of experience, they're totally valid. I know there's a lot of debate amongst Jets fans, like, should we go with someone who's been there, done it before? I know Rex Ryan actually got an interview, which makes me a little bit nauseous to think about. In an alternative parallel universe, could have been Rex Ryan and Aaron Rodgers leading the Jets into 2025, which would have been something, to say the least. But yeah, the lack of experience is a little bit of a worry. His coaching staff, granted, they have more experience than Robert Saleh's. He seems to pick all of his friends, looking in hindsight. I think that was his major downfall, is that his coaching staff was really poor. I feel like there's a little bit of improvement there, but still, the experience might show, that naivety might show. But hopefully he is a Bill Parcells disciple, if want to speak, played under him, and obviously massive impact with the Jets. So hopefully that comes through. He learns quick. He knows how to deal with Woody Johnson in the New York media, which is amazing in itself, because the past, obviously Adam Gase was awful with it. Robert Saleh floundered once kind of the honeymoon period wore off. Todd Bowles, he's always been kind of very chill, very flatline, so he didn't suffer as badly. But we've just not had a head coach who's been able to grab the team by the scruff of the neck, who's been able to really stamp their authority onto it. So it is a little bit of a, hope and a prayer. But like I said, the Jets weren't a prime team for anyone to come to. So I think the fact that Aaron Glenn said he wanted to come to New York was really promising. But yeah, it's definitely not the perfect candidate, and and some of his flaws will show, but I think it could have been a hell of a lot worse. Come back to me in a couple of years' time, and we'll see how that aged, because some of my takes have aged poorly. But yeah, we're just full of hope at the moment. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's head into our next segment, which is going to be our win, loss, or tie segment. So in this section, for those of you that aren't familiar with the podcast, each fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie. Now, Olivia, of course, you were on last year, 12 months ago, for the exact same episode, and you gave your predictions for the record. The Jets went 5-12 in 2024. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was?
I think it was over 5 wins, but I think I was being cautious as well. Ooh, did I say 8 or 9 wins, if I had to guess?
Oh, you went 11 wins.
Okay, right. Well, like I said, I think when I started coming on your podcast, I feel like I started really high, really optimistic, and now it's just been slowly beaten out of me. So I'd love to know what we end up here in this segment, because I keep flip-flopping as the day goes on to what the Jets' flaw and what the Jets' ceiling is going to be. So it should be interesting.
Well, week 1 is proof that the NFL definitely plan the fixtures to a certain way. And week 1, you see Aaron Rodgers return to face the Jets, returns to MetLife. Not primetime game, but it's on a 6 p.m. And looking at the other games on that time, there's absolutely no way Sky don't put this game on a 6 p.m., especially with the Steelers coming to Ireland in a few weeks after that. There's absolutely no way this isn't the game on Sky. You got Browns, Bengals, Colts, Dolphins. There's literally the games, but none of them scream out. But this one will definitely be on Sky. I'm so sure that I that's my prediction. But in terms of predictions, win, lose, or tie.
Ooh, yeah, of course this is going to be week 1, wasn't it? I think it's going to be a battle of defenses. Obviously, Pittsburgh, I think they were ranked the highest defense by someone important. Obviously, really impressive. But their offense with Aaron Rodgers as well, who is incredibly slow. I think it's going to be. I think the atmosphere is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be packed full of Jets fans, and I think it's going to be a real slog. And it could go either way, but I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say the Jets win, and it's going to be something like a field goal that wins it in, as time ticks down. I'm going to say it's going to be a very narrow Jets win. Hopefully they can ride off the atmosphere of that game.
Well, week 2, you're staying at home, and this time you're taking on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it's a loss. It's the Bills are going to be great this year. They've just obviously re-signed running back Cook to so they've got that sorted. Yeah, it's going to be I think it's going to be a rout unless there's like a massive amount of injuries in week 1 for them. Yeah, it's going to be dominant win for the Bills, unfortunately.
Well, week 3 is your first road game of the season, and against a team that is still to come in our season previews. One of our 3 teams remaining. These are the Cardinals, the Bucks, and the Bengals. You take them on at Raymond James Stadium, win, lose, or tie.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one because the Bucks have had a couple of injuries to start off the season. Might be a nice time to catch them. Again, I think it'll be really tight. It could go either way. I'm going to say it's going to be a sneaky Jets win, but I'm not super confident in that. Yeah, I'm going to go Jets win for that one.
Okay, well, so week 4 is on the road again, and this time against the Miami Dolphins.
Ooh, I am no offense. I don't rate the Dolphins this year. I think it's falling apart at the seams, and I think you'll be looking for a new head coach next year. No, again, no offense. But it's away, and the Jets. I think it'll be a learning curve for the Jets. I think it'll be a bad loss. I think it will be one that we should win, but we let it get away with us. So I'm going to say Miami win there.
People are doubting us too much. I don't think we're going to win Super Bowl. But I think we're better. I think we're better than people think. 12 months ago, we were saying they were going to potentially challenge for the AFC East. Got Phillips back, got Chubb back. Thankfully, the Trot Robinson news has turned out to be hopefully minor injury. Waddle and Hill still there. A-Chain still there. Austin Jackson fully healthy, can unleash the run game.
Are you trying to convince me or yourself? Are you trying to convince me or yourself? No. Yeah, I just think it'll be just one of those years for the Dolphins. And it's not personal, it really isn't. I do actually like Tua. But if he gets injured, you're playing Zach Wilson. That is malpractice because Tua is, we know his health history. We don't need to go through that. Out of all the great backups out there, and you've landed on Zach Wilson, that's a choice. But I'll. It's August is the time for dreaming, so I'll let you have it. Won't rain on your parade anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that signing, and also Darren Waller was even worse. But you could have so much better than if you're getting rid of Johnny Smith. You could have got Dallas Goedert, who's coming to the end of his deal at the Philadelphia Eagles. Could have got something for him. You could have got Cole Kmet with Loveland coming into the Bears. There's so many options you could have gone for. You went for a guy who's been out of the league a year, and when he was in the league, he was pretty terrible his last season. So, yeah, it's not. Yeah, that I wasn't too happy about, but I still think we got some players there. I don't think we're winning playoff games and Super Bowls, but I think certainly we could be pushing the playoffs and maybe sneaking as a wildcard team and do what the Steelers do and sort of get in and do nothing in the playoffs. I think that's our ceiling. I think there's definitely, I think we were 6-5 when Tua was healthy. So I think give him a full season. I think if he was healthy the whole of last year, we'd have made the playoffs because the games we had were against the Colts, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and we beat the Patriots. But I think we could have easily beat the Colts if we had Tua rather than Scarlett Thompson or Tyler Huntley. And the same thing with the Seahawks game. The Seahawks game was terrible, and I think if we had Tua there, we'd at least made it competitive, if not won it. So I think, as long as Tua stays healthy, I'm not his biggest fan, but as long as he stays healthy, I can see him, doing okay. Week 5, you're back at home and you're taking on the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, yeah. So I think we're going to bounce back. I think the Cowboys are going to be underwhelming again this year. I don't know what was going on with the head coach. I do think Micah Parsons signed a deal. I don't think he gets traded. I don't think Jerry Jones is that insane. But I don't think they're going to be particularly good. I do like Dak. I do think he gets a lot of flack when he's a really solid, if not good, quarterback for most of the time. But I think the Jets will show a bit of resilience and will beat the Cowboys at home.
Okay, so week 6, you're going to London and you host the Broncos. First of all, are you going to the game?
Yes, I am. So the Jets have very kindly gave me 2 tickets so I don't have to fork out the insane ticket prices that no doubt you would have heard about that the NFL are charging. So I'm really grateful for that. Shout out the Jets. So yeah, we're hosting a bunch of events across the weekend, which is going to be really fun. The Jets themselves are doing a ton of events. So they're really getting involved this weekend, which you'll love to see it. And yeah, it's going to be a fun one. And with London, anything can happen, I think. I don't actually know the statistics, and probably the favourites always win. But it should be good. Broncos, obviously, great season last year, considering expectations. I think we should have beat the Vikings as well last year in London. So I'm going to say we're going to atone as the home team in London, and we're going to beat the Broncos. And that may be a heart over head kind of choice, but we're gonna go with it. Jets over Broncos in London.
Well, week 7, you're staying at home. So you're going back to home, I should say, as you host the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, a bit of a wild card, the Panthers this year. Loved the Ted McMillan pick. I think that's a great pick for the Panthers. But I think we're going to go on a little bit of a mini winning streak here, and I think that it'll be hard because of obviously coming back from London. But I think we'll get a bit of momentum and we'll beat the Panthers. But again, I'm not massively confident on that. But yeah, we're going to be positive. I think we've decided, and yeah, Jets over the Panthers at home.
Well, week 8, you're back on the road against one of our other teams that are still yet to be on this season previews this year, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a loss. I think they're going to have a real bounce back year this year. Obviously, T. Higgins signed mega deal, and their offense just looks incredibly strong. Obviously, defense is a little bit questionable. O-line is very questionable. I'm not quite sure why that wasn't properly addressed from the Bengals, but yeah, I think Joe Burrow is going to be great in mid-season form, and it's going to be Jets loss quite comfortably as well, I think.
Okay, so you've got a week 9 bye week, so week 10 you're playing against the Cleveland Browns and Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, that is what's going on with the Browns. I'd love to be a fly on the wall just for the whole draft process and everything. But yeah, obviously quite lowly rated going into the season. They've got like 5 quarterbacks, I think, at the moment, like if you include Deshaun Watson. But they do have some nice players, and shout out to the UK Brown fans. They, considering the team, what they've produced, they're absolutely incredible. So shout out to them. I think I'm gonna say a Jets win. I think, I think obviously both teams are very parallel to each other, except for the Browns have actually made the playoffs within living memory. I think it'll be like God knows which quarterback will be starting then. Probably Sanders, you're right. So, but yeah, I think the Jets will just have a little bit too much for them, and I'm gonna go Jets win.
Well, there's me scoffing at the Shadur Sanders, but I did say in the Browns season preview that I think he could be started by week 12. I think, and obviously this is before the preseason game he had.
Possibly.
This isn't one where we shouldn't be really be getting too. I think one way or the other. I don't think you can get too negative about a bad preseason performance, but I don't think you can get too excited over a good performance. And I do feel like it's a hard one to gauge because it is preseason. You're playing against a lot of backups, but I had this hunch. I think it's not exactly a room that's going to scare him. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dylan Gabriel isn't exactly like, I don't know. Let's say if it was Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, and maybe Dak Prescott, I think that would be a bit more like, well, he's got no chance of starting here. But I think it's a room where he can easily get in by week 5 or 6, and I don't think he's as bad as everyone said he was in Colorado. Not that I watch college football regularly, but what I've seen from the college games, I think he could be a surprise act. He could actually have a really good year. And I think with a chip on his shoulder, I think he could. I think the draft experience is bound to humble him a little bit. I think that experience is bound to sort of almost make him not mature, but certainly maybe make him realise that he can't act maybe the way he was acting behind the scenes. So yeah, I think with all of that attached, I think that if you got Dion as your father, you've got some sort of good genetics along the way. You've got some sort of you're going to learn stuff from him along the way about playing in the NFL. So I think Sanders will be either this week 12, week 18, week 17. I think he'll start by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't mind him as a player. I just think the Browns' quarterback strategy is a choice. I don't know what their thinking is. It feels like there's been some interference with the owner or higher power, perhaps. So yeah, I just think who knows? I have no idea what the Browns are thinking, but maybe that's for the best. Actually, maybe that's their strategy. But yeah, I think he could be the starter in that week. Actually, I agree with you.
Well, week 11, you are on the
Mhm.
road to the New England Patriots.
Ooh, it's interesting because a lot of people are quite high on in New England, very high on Drake May. I think he's still got a little bit of proof. Not to say either way, I just think he's still got to prove some more. Obviously, I can't pronounce his name, but Vabel. Yeah, I've only ever written that. New head coach. I think they'll be a tough team. I don't think they'll be pushing playoffs. Um, on the road in New England, I think it'll be a tough place to play. They're not. I don't think they'll be soft, but I don't think they'll be particularly good. But I'm going to say it's going to be a close Patriots win.
Okay, so week 12, you're traveling to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that's a really tough game. I really like the Ravens. I do want them to win the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if it's their year this year, but I would really like for them to, if it was not the Jets, obviously, and if it had to be an AFC team. But yeah, I think that's going to be a loss, barring some crazy, unexpected turn in form by the Jets in terms of expectations or like injuries from the Ravens. Easy Ravens win, I think.
Okay, so week 13, you are at home to the Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta's an interesting one. Will Penix be starting then? I assume so. Will Kirk Cousins be hanging around like a bad smell still in Atlanta? Who knows? They've got some really nice players, but I do think it'll be a down year for them. Return of Jeff Ulbrich as the Falcons DC, known for his son causing a scandal with Shedeur Sanders. Had an awful stint as Jets interim head coach last year, which is very well documented. I'm going to say Jets win, but that'll be intriguing to see where both teams are at that point. Jets win.
Well, week 14, you're playing once again against the Dolphins, but this time at home.
So I'm going to this game, so I've got my flight booked and everything. I am really excited. It's rivalries week as well. Do you know the new uniform initiative
Yeah.
tonight? Yeah. So it's the Jets, and I think we might play you when it's the Dolphins one. I'm not entirely sure on that though. But yeah, so it's the Jets rivalries uniform game. Didn't book because of that. It was just the way our schedule work. Really excited. Hopefully there's something we could be playing for, so we actually have a decent crowd. And I'm definitely going heart over head, and I think it's going to be a Jets win because I'm in the building. It's going to be 18-0. Zach Wilson's going to be crying on the sideline, and it's a Jets win at home. If I'm being sensible, and it'll be a close win. I think both teams will be dogged in the cold. So yeah, Jets win. Just.
Oh, you break my heart saying that. You break my heart. Week 15, you're on the road, and on the road, you're taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It feels like every single year we're playing the Broncos and the Jaguars. Like we just cannot escape them. Again, I'd be fascinated to see how the Jaguars look. New head coach, can Trevor Lawrence like finally push himself to being that like potentially elite quarterback coming out of college? Tricky one because obviously good draft, big trade up there for Hunter. I'm gonna say I think it'll be a tricky Jets loss. I think it'll be again similar to the to a game I said before. I think it's the Miami one where the Jets should win. Maybe have lost it themselves. It'll be a tight one, and I'm gonna say Jags win for that one.
Okay, so week 16, you're on the road to the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it's going well in New Orleans. But one of the favourites for the number one pick. I'm gonna say I think they'll be fully in tank mode by then, regardless of how the Jets are doing. I think it'll be a Jets win, and I think it'll be quite a comfortable one at that as well.
Okay, so your final home game of the regular season as you host the New England Patriots.
Okay. At home, I think that we'll split with the Patriots, and I think it'll be a Jets win, and then yeah.
Okay, so your final game of the entire season is a road game against potentially the last ever game at Highmark Stadium against the Buffalo Bills.
the only way we win this is like if the Bills have like wrapped up the conference and they're resting literally everyone. But I think in January or late January or maybe late December, sorry, against the Bills, potentially the last game at the stadium. I don't think it will be, but I think it's going to be a Bills win. Like I said, unless they make wholesale changes because they're already in the playoffs and wrapped up the number 1 seed or something. But yeah, Bills win.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll take an almighty injury bug to stop the Bills to ensure that is the last ever game at Highmark Stadium. I think a playoff game potentially. They could be the 3rd seed. They could have a road game and then road game again against the Ravens or Chiefs. So I think there's a chance that they could it could still be the last game, even if they make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It could still be the last game. I don't see how I think they'll win the division, and I think they'll host the game regardless in the playoffs. But fun fact here, I don't know whether you know this, Olivia. We mentioned it on the Bills podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The first ever game at Highmark was the Jets. Fun fact.
Okay.
So it could be a full circle moment for the Jets. But
that is a fun fact.
That does mean that you do end the season with a 10-7 record. So you would think that would get you in the playoffs.
That was a little bit optimistic by me. Maybe I overestimated the strength of the schedule. I'm surprised I picked that many. I thought it was okay. Yeah, that is a little bit optimistic. But you know what? Like I said, August is for dreaming. Definitely won't age well with it being the Jets. But I'll take it. That's our ceiling. I think that if Justin Fields is playing for another contract, everything goes correctly. But yeah, maybe on the optimistic side there. I got carried away.
And with that record, you get into the playoffs. How far do you think your team would go in the playoffs?
Oh, if we get the playoffs, I'll be throwing street parties. I don't care. We can get bounced out by the Bills for all I'm bothered. Yeah, I think with that record, we might make a little bit of a run, but if we somehow get to the playoffs, I think we'll be one and done. And you know what? I will take that all day long because it means that monkey's off our back. And someone else, I think it might be like the Falcons or someone will have the longest drought. Not only in the AFL, but like the entirety of American sport, we have the longest playoff drought. So that would be amazing. What a first season for Aaron Glenn. But again, that's probably not going to happen.
If it did happen, though, surely he'd be a Coach of the Year contender.
Oh, absolutely. I think he'd have to, unless something crazy went on. But yeah, I think he'd have to be for me.
Well, let's head to the final section, which is going to be Fan Asks Fan. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is a brand new section to this year's off-season season previews. Each fan that comes on answers a question from the previous fan, whilst also then asking a question to the next fan. Now, our last team was the Indianapolis Colts, and JP McGrath wants to ask you, Olivia, who will be the offensive rookie of the year this season?
Oh, great question. I think it will be Ashton Genty. He's been clowned a little bit in pre-season, but pre-season you don't go full pelt. I think he's going to be amazing for the Raiders. I think a lot of their offense will be around him. I think Gino's getting older. I think the wide receivers aren't like brilliant. They're not like the worst in the league, but I think their offense will be structured around him. So, and I think it will be him, and I think he'll be a clear winner as well.
Okay, so you're double downing on it. Not just he's going to win the award; it's going to be a landslide.
Yes, I am. Definitely won't age poorly, I'm sure.
Not Malachi Moore for the rookie of the year.
Well, if he was like the rookie of the year as a safety / DB, I'd love to know what Glenn's feeding him, because that just feels like it would just not happen. If he did, I think I've convinced myself after his first interception, I'm going to get his jersey. That's enough to convince me to part with near enough £100. I think I'll eventually get there, but he has to prove it to me with at least one interception. That would be nice though, as if he got defensive rookie of the year, but probably a little bit on the unlikely side, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, we had Ollie Butler Henderson on the podcast for the Patriots season preview, and I was saying to him that, and he was saying it himself that, with Henderson being one of the rookies taken by the Patriots, I think he has to get a Patriots jersey. And friend of the show, Andrew Manning, is a Giants fan. I think that we all know what I'm going to say here, but of course, back in the day, he had to get a Manning jersey, I'm sure. But for you, Olivia, but that is certainly a genuine reason to get a shirt. If it's a guy that you've announced the draft pick on the stage at the draft, I think it's such a legitimate reason to get his jersey. Finally, Olivia, what is your question to our next team season preview guest?
Okay, I've been thinking about this. My question to the next guest is, not including your own team, so you're not allowed to pick the team you support, who has the best uniform combinations in the NFL? Which team has the best uniform combination? So that can include home, road, alternate, throwbacks, but it has to be like a combination of them all. So it has to be one team, it can't just be one uniform, if that makes sense.
I love that question. That's a really good question, and I think that's something that we can look forward to on our next team preview with just 3 left to record. But in the meantime, this has been today's episode. So first of all, Olivia, thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I love talking about the Jets, even though they've been dire, to say the least. And you reminded me of that, so thank you. It's nice to be humbled once in a while about your sports teams, isn't it? But yeah, I've loved it as usual. So thank you for having me on.
Well, no problem at all. And this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, New York Jets 2025 season preview. I have been, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest in Jets fan and Jets International Fan of the Year, Olivia Peebles. And we'll see you guys for our next team season preview. Take care.